Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Sausage on a Fork, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I have been joined for this episode by none other than Kerry Binns, who now works under the name of Kerry J. Kerry played Lucy Pearson. Kerry, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. What we'll do, Kerry, is we'll start this episode the way we start every episode. And if you could tell us how you first got into acting.
So I came at acting very much from a musical theatre point of view. So I kind of danced sort of forever.
Right.
A lot of we used to do shows, talent shows, that sort of thing, very much with the singing and dancing. So that was my background, mainly theatre based, with a little bit of acting thrown in. I think it was around, so I did Les Mis as a child. So I was young Eponine in that after going to the London Open auditions. And through that managed to get an agency, which is when the more straighter acting stuff came in. But I've not done a great deal of straight acting. It's been mainly musical theatre based.
So were you at like a theatre school or anything like that?
No, so I grew up in Clacton, which is about an hour and a half on the train out of London. So very doable, but not kind of base yourself at the theatre schools like a lot of people who lived in the Greater London area. It'd be easier for them to be in a theatre school. So I was just in a normal school. There was a couple of very good dancing schools in the area. So I got different things from each of those. Started when it was more ballet based, and then the dancing school I moved to was a lot more on shows. So I had a bit of both from that, but again, mostly dancing based rather than acting based.
Okay.
But having got the agency, I got to on Italia Conti's agency. Italia Conti do a lot of the actors for Grange Hill, or they did rather. So that was when I got to hear about the casting for Grange Hill.
Right. And did you, like you've said, you've done Les Mis and stuff, but did you get to work with anyone who we might have heard of in those very, very early days? Like,
I mean, there was lots. It was the original cast of Les Mis.
Right, okay.
So with adult-wise, I think I was the second or third cast of kids, because obviously there was more of a change over there. So it was all the big names, Michael Ball, Peter Policarpo, Colm Wilkinson. There was a lot of names in that original cast. But we did other things as well. So I did. There was a Royal Variety performance.
Oh, right,
I was tap dancing with Martin Daniels.
Oh, brilliant.
I don't think it was a Royal Variety show. It was some sort of Royal Command performance. I don't quite know. I can't remember now. It was at the Dominion Theatre.
Oh, right.
But that was quite a star-studded cast, which was great fun to be a part of.
Brilliant. And so then you said then that the straighter acting came in and Grange Hill came in, but was there, so what other sorts of straight acting things?
Not a great deal, to be honest. Mainly commercials, and again, the commercials, a lot of those were more musical theatre. I was tap dancing with Ronald McDonald. I think there was another one where we did with British Gas at the time. It was me and my sister, because my sister used to do things. And it was one of the hottest days of the year. And we were walking around this stately home, warming our hands by fires, dressed in all winter wear. Whilst my mum, she said it was her best job because she had to take us along. And apparently there was a really nice catering truck.
Brilliant.
So she was enjoying all the catering, whilst me and my sister were sweltering, warming our hands by fires. In a winter kit. I did a few plays, but again, more, sound of music and things, and where there was a bit of acting, but it was always, I was much more of a theatre kid than a straight actor kid.
Okay. So you joined Grange Hill as Lucy Pearson in series 11, which was a about 87 it went on the air. And you were there as the little sister of
That's
of
right.
Matthew Pearson. Now, were you a fan of Grange Hill?
So, yes. Funny story, actually. So when I got Grange Hill, the local paper in Clacton did a whole sort of front page thing of me.
Wow.
Jumping in the air, Kerry Binns has got into Grange Hill, kind of ta-da thing. And my dad told the local newspaper that he didn't actually let me watch Grange Hill.
That's okay.
So I went from hero to zero at school. Oh, how cool. She's in Grange Hill. What? She's not even allowed
Yeah.
to watch it. So I lost entirely any street cred instantly there. So yes, I did
Brilliant.
watch it, but not when my dad was around.
Right. Okay. Okay. So presumably you had to go to like read throughs and things like that. So was it weird going into a room with people that you'd seen on telly?
So when I joined, it was it was the first, like, so it was the first episode of series
Yeah.
11, and there were a lot of new cast
Uh-huh.
members. So I was in with it was Susie and Justine,
Uh-huh.
and see my older brother Matthew.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing was just quite intimidating at the time. Generally, it
Yeah.
was a massive. I'd never been to anything like a read through before. Everybody sitting in a big circle reading the scripts.
Yeah.
It was all quite new, but there'd been a lot of new things leading up to it. So because I wasn't at Grange Hill, I was at the private school because I was the posh little sister. I think
Right.
Matthew had some trouble at home. The
Yeah.
parents had got divorced and they'd lost a lot of money. So we'd come supposedly from private school to him going to Grange
Mhm.
Hill, and I was still at the posh private
Yeah.
school. So I'd had to go to a posh kind of school uniform shop and be
Oh,
completely
right.
fitted for this ridiculous uniform with a
Yeah.
hat and all sorts. So I wasn't in the normal Grange Hill kit.
Right. Yeah.
And funnily enough, I think some of that might have helped with me not being a theatre child at Italia Conti. So
Right.
when I went to the casting, most of the people going to the casting were already at Italia Conti.
Uh-huh.
So they were going in their school uniform, which was the Italia Conti school uniform, whereas I'd come straight from school, from my primary school.
Right. Yeah.
So I looked different instantly.
Yeah.
So I guess I must have stood out a little bit like that. My school uniform was purple at the time as
Right.
well, so it wasn't subtle.
No.
So I think I must have stood out as something different then. So even though I was auditioning for one of the cast that I didn't get,
Uh-huh.
I was also younger, so I wasn't the same. I was a year younger than most of the cast
Right.
there as well, because I was the little sister rather
Yeah.
than actually a first year at Grange
Yeah.
Hill.
So you'd actually gone to audition
So I
for someone
auditioned for
else?
one. I can't remember
Ah,
which
right.
part. It
Okay.
was probably something like Justine or Chrissy or
Uh-huh.
one of those parts. So I think that's what I read through.
Right.
I was also, like I've said, my background's theatre. I wasn't the subtle, cool TV acting.
Right.
I was
Okay.
probably a bit more theatrical, over the top, which
Uh-huh.
came across as posh, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
Plus standing out in my other purple school uniform.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I was memorable, but not suitable for what
Right.
they were
Okay.
actually looking for. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So like we said, you got the part of Lucy, and Lucy actually opens series 11. Like the very first scene of series
it is,
11
yeah.
is outside the car, outside the house that the Pearsons lived in. And we see Lucy, we see Matthew, and we see their mum, played by Julia Goodman. What was she like with you?
I don't really remember. I mean,
Right.
very nice.
Yeah.
Everybody was very nice. All the adults were lovely to the children. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really remember that well. It was
Right.
it was a very
Yeah.
long time ago, but everybody was very, very
Right.
nice. I
Cool.
remember that.
Okay.
Funnily enough, I
Yeah.
grew quite a lot between my audition and the first filming
Oh,
date.
wow.
So they actually had to stick Matthew on a box.
No
So
way.
Paul was standing. So I was meant to look smaller than him. So I remember them standing him on a box. So
Brilliant. Love that. It was Matthew's first day at
Mhm.
Grange Hill. And like I say, you open it because although the camera is on Matthew, It's Lucy's voice that we hear. Lucy's winding him up about it being his first day and how he was, he was worried about starting the new school and all this. And when Matthew said that he wasn't, it's Lucy's like, well, why have you been up since 6:30? Things like that. And then she just said to him, oh, couldn't you sleep? She's a proper little wind up, Lucy. Like, and the next scene that we see is actually in the car on the way to school. The mum's driving them both. Now, as you said there, Matthew's in his Grange Hill uniform. Lucy's in a posh school uniform. And Matthew's asking why he had to sit in the back. Why couldn't he sit in the front? And she says it's safer in the back. And then the mum calls him a name, which Lucy then sees upon to wine. Can you remember what the name was?
Darling.
It was Darling.
Well, that's what I got shouted at for the next 5 years. Matthew Darling.
Love that.
People had yelled that, but people at school, I got yelled that at so many times.
Brilliant.
Bye, Matthew Darling.
I love it. Like I say, she starts winding him up. She's calling him in, and she says Matthew doesn't like being called darling. But then she looks at him. Do you, darling? And can you remember what Matthew said to Lucy when she says this to him?
Oh goodness, I can't remember.
Something that's really, I thought was really out of character for Matthew to be saying. Matthew told her to get stuffed, which then the mum then tells Matthew off. Obviously, yeah. She doesn't tell the little sister off for winding him up, but she tells him off for having to go back.
Yeah, you'd think maybe he'd say something like that after a couple of weeks at Grange Hill, but not coming straight from it. Maybe he's getting in practice.
And then the mum says, well, I hope you won't pick up a lot of bad manners at Grange Hill. Mm. So it's Lucy then chimes in again with, I bet he will. And then she then told Matthew that something would happen to him at school.
And
you remember what that was?
Down the toilet and pull the chain.
Brilliant.
Oh, it's all coming back to me now.
Brilliant. No, when you watch that, and I was watching it the other day, and like I say, Lucy's saying all this, and you think, hang on, you're the younger sibling. You've got all this to come. Like you wouldn't think like the younger one would be saying all this, knowing that, hold on, if it does actually happen, that's going to happen to me in a couple of years' time.
I think it's the confidence of that. But you think at that age, because I work with children a lot in various, I do children's parties now and various other things. But the age group, and I've got 2 children myself, that age, that sort of year 5, 6 at school, the last couple of years at primary school, the confidence and the cockiness, because they're top of the walk, whereas the fear of being, a little first year or year 7 now, but that it is a very different attitude. And I do remember that, and I see it now with kids being total, cock of the walk, we're year 6s, we're top of the primary school, whereas the difference with that actual terror of the big secondary school.
Yeah, I mean, like I work in a primary school, so I know exactly where you're coming from there. Now, when they arrived at the school after this journey, Matthew gets out of the car and he practically runs away from his mum. And as you've already said, Lucy shouted after him, "Bye-bye, Matthew, darling." And Matthew then walks into Trevor Cleaver and Vince Savage, who greeted him with, "Hello, Matthew, darling." And if I remember rightly, that got used in a couple of episodes by them when they'd see him in the school. Oh, look, it's Matthew, darling.
Matthew, darling.
But then the next time that we see Lucy, Mum was driving them to school again. Now, can you remember, were all those scenes in the car, were they all shot on the same day, or would they have been different?
I don't think so. Because I know I went up a few times. Right. So, I don't think so. I think they were shot over a period of days in weeks over a month or so. I can't really remember. No, it's all right. But I do remember going up a few times, not just for readings, but for filming.
Right.
So I don't think it was all done in the same day.
Right. I just wasn't sure because they were so short.
Yeah.
Those scenes. I was just wondering there.
Yeah, I don't think so. It would have made sense to, and
Yeah.
maybe my memory's wrong, but
Right.
I think it was over several
Right.
weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Like I say, they're doing the school run again, and Matthew wanted to go to school on his own, and Mum told him not to be so silly. And Lucy then mimics the mum and says exactly the same thing as her. And Matthew then tells her to shut up. And Matthew then complained again about not getting dropped off at the school. And this is where you mentioned earlier about the parents and what they were going through and stuff. The mum then tells him to stop moaning, stop complaining, because she had enough to worry about. And like the whole like sort of demeanor of Lucy changes from being like
Yeah.
this smiley wind up kid. When the mum says that, you can see like she does look quite worried by that. So much so that when they got to school this time, she didn't shout anything after Matthew this time. She just let him get out the car and off he went. And the next time, like, so that was the second episode you were in. Now, you listed in a third episode. Now, I watched this third episode and couldn't see you
I
anywhere in
can't
it.
remember. I thought I was at least in 3 or 4
I
episodes. So
think,
I maybe some things have been cut since. I do
yeah,
remember that I was in at least 3,
yeah.
maybe
I think
4, but
there's an episode where so Laura Regan and her mum are driving to school, and they
mm,
say, "Oh, look, there's Matthew Pearson getting dropped off away from the school," and I
right.
think you might be in the car,
Possibly.
but
I
there
do
was,
feel like there
yeah.
at some point there was some lines, or maybe they were cut,
I
or
mean, I could well be wrong, and I'm happy
I
to be
can't remember.
proved wrong if anyone listening can point that out. And then obviously Matthew's mum started letting him get out of the car earlier, and he probably ended up going to school on his own,
Mm.
which meant that we never saw you
That was it.
as Lucy
That was my
again.
Grange Hill career.
Now, a year or so later, Lucy Pearson was back in the program. Like there was all the things with, like as you said, the divorce
Yeah.
happening, and they had to move house, and they went to like
So
this.
obviously they recast then. I mean,
Yeah,
I used to say I'd grown between that casting and the thing. They had to stick Matthew on a box.
right.
I think I'd probably grown a lot more. It was that sort of age
Yeah.
10, 11, where you just shoot up.
Uh-huh.
And I think they probably wanted for that vulnerable kind of little sister look, somebody a bit
Yeah.
littler, this
Right. But
becoming
did they?
kind of
W- w-
lanky 11-year-old.
was there any contact with you at all over that? Can you remember, or was it just a case of actually?
I don't think directly. They probably spoke to the agency and
Right.
found out details such as height and,
Yeah.
got some recent pictures or things.
Uh-huh.
But I think they did. It made sense to have somebody look a lot more vulnerable
Right.
looking at that stage. So,
Okay. Yeah. Now, I say this quite a lot because I use IMDb for a lot of my research, and
right.
I know it's not the most reliable source of information. That the catchphrase has just come out there, but on your IMDb page for Kerry Binns, there's nothing else there. It's Grange Hill and nothing else. Did you carry on acting?
Well, yes, but like I say, it was more theatre.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a strange age, so I think not quite. Yeah, no, I did quite a lot of. I did a theatre tour of Gypsy with Ruth Maddock,
Right. Yeah.
and um, I did, yeah, a lot more theatre, a lot more performance stuff. But
Uh-huh.
I've never really done a great deal of telly
Right.
or film stuff. And I didn't even know I had an IMDb page until you mentioned it. And plus anything from about the age of 15, I was Kerry J from then.
Yeah.
So anything after.
So, what other shows, musicals were you in, and which other like sorts of
What, as
people
a
have you
child or as an adult?
either? And like, so who have you worked with that you could maybe tell us something about?
Well, I mean, so I did a lot of the West End shows. So I was in Chicago for a couple of
All right.
years.
Yeah.
So I started off as the chorus. But the nice thing about Chicago is every member of the chorus is also a character as
Right.
well. So I was the Hungarian one that got hung every night. So
Right.
that's great. I had to die every night, which is fabulous. So when I joined the cast, it was Sasha Distel as Billy Flynn, who was such a
Wow.
cool name for her.
Wow.
That was really cool. But it went on to be Marty Pello from Wet, Wet, Wet. So by
Yeah.
that stage, I was first cover Roxy. So Roxy's the lead in
Yeah.
Chicago, and I was the first understudy.
Yeah.
So there was a few different people that played Roxy when I was there. Denise Van Outen, Claire Sweeney,
Yeah.
a few others, but whenever they weren't on, as if they were ill or something,
Yeah.
I was on as Roxy then. So that was a fabulous part to
Yeah. I
do.
can imagine.
And so
Yeah.
I played opposite Marty Pello as Billy Flynn at one stage.
Yeah. Wow.
There with Alison Moyet, so she was Mama Morton in it for a little while. She was great. She used to cook everybody chicken casserole and
Brilliant.
look after everyone. she,
Love that.
she was a genuine mum, kind of.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was
no,
great.
brilliant. I ask people who've worked with big names like that, do you get starstruck in those situations, or is it just a case of, oh, it's someone else in the show, let's get on with it?
I think it's a bit of both.
Right.
I think you always have to be aware. So Denise Van Outen had sometimes come out to the bar with us
Right.
afterwards, but it was, we were aware that she couldn't sort of sit with her back to the bar. She needed to be protected
Yeah.
in a space so that she wasn't feeling vulnerable.
Uh-huh.
So I think you are always aware. I guess you're always slightly aware. It depends how well you get to know them,
Right.
really.
I get you. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've done various pantos and various other things with. You're always working with names. Some you get
Yeah.
to know really well and they become friends, and some, that you're still a bit starstruck, and some
Yeah.
you don't necessarily get on with, and
Yeah.
it's just like anything else, really.
Brilliant.
And some you get before they're famous. So I did Grease with Hannah Waddingham, who's now
Wow.
doing amazingly.
Yeah.
She's always been an incredible talent,
Yeah.
but she's sort of lately really hit the big time. It was nice to have been really good friends with her before she was,
Yeah. She's
superstar.
like, because of my age, I don't really bother with celebrity and stuff like that.
Mm.
I don't really but she's probably my favorite current celebrity at the moment.
Oh, fabulous.
I think she's brilliant.
Oh, she is.
And she's one of those people who I say, like, she's not trying to be someone that she isn't either.
No, not at all. She
Like,
just literally
yeah,
is like that. She's brilliant.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh, love that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it was
now
nice.
you
So
did something quite sensible in the week while we've been setting this up, because you sent me a YouTube playlist of loads of stuff that you've been in, which it isn't listed on IMDb and stuff because it's commercials and music videos and other little bits. So we
yeah.
are going to talk about them
Okay.
because you sent me a clip from a film called Mirror Mask.
Oh, so that was a really fun one to do.
Yeah.
So, motion capture, which
Right.
I loved being a part of that. So yeah, you're in a. First of all, I'm a massive Neil Gaiman fan, so to
Right.
be
Yeah.
on his film was really, really cool. Um, but yeah, so you're in this black suit with all the like stuck with ping pong balls all
Yeah.
over you and cameras 360, and just trying to recreate, yeah, this kind of this grotesque sort of music box character, of which there were then replicated and be about 20 or so
So
of them.
they were all you,
They were
all
all me,
dancers, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny though. I went to the premiere of it and ended up sitting next to one of the animators, and sort of, oh, who are you? Oh, yes, I was the music box star. Oh, I've been working on your body for the last 6 months. So that's nice.
Brilliant. I mean,
It was
because
really interesting. They gave me a tour of all the animation. I did something else for them as well. There was Elton John's musical Vampires,
all
which was
right.
on Broadway. So they needed a load of CGI vampires. So I
Yeah.
went back and did a load of motion capture for them as
So
well.
was that's with Henson,
No, I can't remember the name of the
right?
chap in offhand. It was. Yeah, it was
Because
lovely.
I know the movie was made by Jim Henson
Yes,
Productions, wasn't it?
some of it was that. Some I can't.
Right, okay. All
Yeah,
right,
I can't
no
remember the
problem. But
details.
that music box dancer, it's close to you, isn't it? The
That's
Carpenters
right.
song. Was it you singing it?
No,
Ah, right, okay.
no,
Okay.
I was just the motion capture.
Right, okay. Because I mean, there's some people in that film. Like,
Yeah.
did you get to work with any of them? Like Rob
Not really,
Brydon's
no,
did?
no. I
No.
literally came in to do my bit,
Right.
which is often the way in these things.
Yeah.
It's like we were on the Blue and Elton John video for, is it Sorry Seems to Be
Yeah.
the Hardest Word. So we did a
Uh-huh.
lot of the dancing on that. So we met all of Blue, who were really sweet. But Elton John came in. We saw him very briefly,
Right.
like on
Okay.
the last day. But even though he's looks like he's in the same video, it's not.
Right.
We don't
Okay. Yeah.
really hang out.
All right. Now, I need to talk to you about an advert that you were in. It went out in New Zealand.
Oh, the
The
Crisco
Crisco
crisp
advert.
hampers. So
No.
that was really funny. So I spent a year in New Zealand,
Right.
and it took me a long while. So my children's dad is Kiwi, so which
Ah,
was
right.
the
Okay.
reason I ended up out there.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I'd spent a year really trying to get into things, and it took a little while because it's just a sort of different culture out there.
Uh-huh.
But I'd done a few various things in various places. I'd done some cabaret stuff. I'd done some teaching street dance. I'd done a lot of various, a bit of odd cabaret stuff here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was just about to leave, and I had an agent there. Just before I left, I was about to do 6 months traveling all around Australia
Right.
and Asia, which was kind of a big trip.
Yeah.
But just before I left, I got that commercial. And it just seemed to be all of the different areas of everything I'd done in New Zealand all coming together. And so I was the mum. The dad
Yeah.
was apparently the local weatherman.
Right. Okay.
Two fake kids and 50 dancing vegetables.
Yeah.
So I was the mum, yeah,
You,
but
you,
surrounded by all these dancing cans of vegetables and
you
biscuits. And
didn't fancy being a tube of Pringles. That no.
it was hilarious. But the brilliant thing was it was a great payday, and that was it. I was off on the
Yeah.
travels. It's
Brilliant.
just came at exactly the right time.
Brilliant. And there's one, and when you sent me the playlist, you mentioned this as one of like sort of like the main things, the GE Money advert.
Oh, okay. So that one, so I was with a modeling agency that I used to do a lot of work for, just as, print stuff mainly.
Uh-huh.
But they rang me up one day and said, Kerry, I don't suppose you can yo-yo. It's like, I have been waiting my whole life for somebody to ask me that. That was my thing. Do you remember on the playground at the
Yeah.
primary school? It was a real thing, the Fanta yo-yos and
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Coca-Cola yo-yos. So that was it. I used to hang with the boys at school, and I
Brilliant.
got all around the world and walked the dogs. And so I loved a bit of yo-yo. So I went to this audition, and I was surrounded by there was some like really cool Chinese guys and super champion yo-yoers who do super fancy, really quick, amazing stuff. And but I was the kind of doing it with a bit of flair, a bit of woo.
Yeah.
So a little bit of something different. So I wasn't necessarily the best yo-yoer,
Right.
but I could yo-yo with style. So we ended up filming that. I had to fly to Finland, and then we went to Estonia. So
Wow.
it was about a week and a half away. And yeah, it was really fun to
Because
do.
I wasn't sure if you were actually doing that
Oh, I
or if it
was.
was
That was all
CGI, but
me.
I love the fact that you were doing all those tricks because
I
some of
love yo-yo.
they don't look that easy. Some of those things that you're doing in that advert, like, I
You
can
never
just
know when skills are going to come in handy.
yeah, I can just about make a yo-yo come back up the string. That's it. Like that's as far like the beginning and end of my yo-yo talents there. Now, and there was one. Well, I'm gonna say you were dancing with a baby.
That was the Do Dots. That was
Was,
the Spanish nappy brand. I
was that
think so.
was
The
that easy?
idea for well, the idea for it. So at the casting, you had to watch videos of babies and little toddlers, and you
Yeah.
had to copy their moves in quite a you sort of copy what they were doing, but in a stylistic dancerish kind of
Right,
way.
I get you, yeah.
So that was great. The trouble when we went, and the other thing was, so I'd just come back from Glastonbury. It was one of these Glastonburys where it was absolutely tipping with rain. You were in a mud bath for
Yeah.
about a week. Everybody had stinking colds by the end of it,
Yeah.
and everybody was feeling rotten. And then I was like, right, I'm off to Madrid for a week. So I left everybody feeling sorry and cold and muddy. I was like, right, I'm going to Madrid. So it's a week in Madrid. And because babies and children can only work a certain amount of hours a day, we had loads of free time.
Yeah.
I had a bit of spending money. So, just a couple of hours filming a
To
day and then
to
off around.
recover from your cold. Is that what you? Yeah.
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 But the funny thing was, so I was the only non-Spanish speaker,
Right.
because languages were never my forte.
Uh-huh.
But they said, oh, we've paired you with a slightly older child because you don't speak Spanish, which didn't really make
No.
sense to me, because that's the real reason I can speak baby.
Yeah.
So it was slightly weird that was the pairing that I got with the child that actually did speak and would have liked to have been communicating
Yeah.
a bit more. But it was good fun. It was a lovely little job anyway.
Yeah. And there's an advert for the Ford Cougar where you played the photographer.
Oh, yeah. So a
Is
lot of these adverts are working with the same choreographer. So there's a
right.
choreographer, Lisa Bitzler,
Right.
who I
Okay.
did a lot of work with. She's now a producer as well and director. Actually, I think that commercial was with her assistant,
Right.
choreographing it mainly.
Because
And
I
yeah,
was going to ask, is there much choreography in an
so there
advert
was
like that?
quite a lot of
Right.
choreography
Okay.
in that one. Yeah, we worked really closely with.
Right.
So both Lisa and Jenny, her assistant, have quite a contemporary style.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, that I think they did a lot of work. I did a lot of work with them around a certain when they wanted something different. So there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of commercials we did with that are slightly out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. The thing is though, when we got what tends to happen on these things, which happened with the Ford Cougar adverts, you rehearse and you do all these cool moves, and then the stylist comes along and gives you these like 7-inch Jimmy Choos or something
Yeah.
as part of the advert, and then you suddenly got to do the whole thing
Yeah.
in these ridiculous heels.
Brilliant.
But it was good fun. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
nice choreography.
Brilliant. Was that filmed in England? Or
Can't remember. I don't think it was, but I can't remember where it was
only
filmed.
because the next one I'm going to ask you about was a QVC one
Oh, so
for
that was out in
Brazil.
Mexico. That
All
was
right.
really
Okay.
nice. Yeah, that was a nice one.
And
Actually, I was pregnant on that one.
were you? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hadn't told them.
Right. Okay.
It was early. Yeah, I was just starting to show, but I think because the clothes were a little bit more frumpy and
I
baggy.
mean, to be honest, the Brazil one there, that's like, it was all mainly like sort of uh, mostly head and neck, I think. A
Might
bit
well
of
have been.
dancing
There
and
might have
stuff.
been a reason for that.
Now, you were pregnant on the Sony iToy one, where because
Oh
you
no.
wouldn't have got away with that one, I don't think.
No.
That's you are being chased by, I don't know, symbols, X's, cogs, whatever you want to call them, but you're sort of being chased
Yeah.
by and fighting. And that, I mean, that does look a good laugh. That that advert, like,
It was good fun. It was hard work.
yeah.
I remember it was really cold. That last kind of Zen scene
Mm-hmm.
where you're meant to be all hot and sweaty and doing a kind of Zen workout. And it was, yeah, around East End of London in about 10 o'clock at night, and
Right.
they keep spraying you with stuff and it's freezing and you're in your kind of sports top and shorts.
Brilliant.
But it was a really nice crew on that one. But I think that was like the predecessor to all of these. It was old technology,
So
really.
like
Now
the
it's
VR sets it'd be now,
yeah,
wouldn't it? VR headsets, yeah.
yeah.
And you did a couple, another QVC one for Fashion
Oh
Day and the
yeah,
Samsung one.
various things.
Don't,
These are all bitty things. These are
yeah,
all. So when you do the show, so I was working on the shows. I worked on shows for about 6, 7 years, probably going from contract to contract. Because when you take a show on, it's usually about a year's
yeah,
contract. or you extend it. So I did about a year on We Will Rock
Right.
You, on Grease, on I think Follies was an amazing one actually for names, because it was all like people who used to be big back in the day, so
Right.
people from
Like,
like Carry On films,
all right. Yeah.
and just real old old ladies that just were stars back in their day.
Yeah.
So many stories, and that was absolutely gorgeous. And it was at the festival hall.
Yeah.
And we were also sponsored by Swarovski for the costumes.
Wow.
So I was like on the dressing room floor every night, just seeing what had dropped off, so I could make myself a bit of jewellery. But that
Brilliant.
was a gorgeous job to do.
Yeah.
But so my point was, when you do these long contracts, but in between, you go, so you have the day free a lot of the time, so you can go to a casting
Yeah.
and sometimes fit in a job on a, because you get, if you're on a year's contract, obviously there's a holiday
Yeah.
included, holiday days included, or in between contracts. It's nice. It was nice to be able for me to do both theatre and the commercial stuff,
Yeah.
because when I was out of work in the theatre, I could do castings as in, because you do a lot of fashion and trade shows as well. So in all of a lot of fashion shows have proper models
Yeah.
and dancer models.
Yeah.
So we were always the dancer, because I was tall enough to be a dancer model.
Uh-huh.
So that was good fun.
Yeah.
So you've got lots of different things. You're chopping and changing. Who am I today?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
have I got on?
Yeah. No, you said there about being like the dancers and stuff like that, and like I said, you've been in like some music videos. But the first one I want to talk to you about is the Jamiroquai one, because that's like a small production that Jamiroquai
Yeah.
King for a Day. It looks like it's a really grand set. It's all Dangerous Liaisons type costumes and stuff like that. I mean, that must have been a great one to film.
It was great. It was a night shoot.
Right.
So it was, I think we had about 4 days rehearsal, and I think it was 2 or 3 days of a night shoot.
Right.
So all of those costumes, you also saw those, everybody asleep in kind of
Right.
sleeping bags while they're waiting for their bit. These powdered wigs poking out a sleeping bag.
I
Um,
love that. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And it was quite funny. We're rehearsing, I think on the last day of the shoot, we were then straight into rehearsing a hair show the next day. So we kind of did the night shoot and then straight to work to rehearsal the next day. But
brilliant.
it was good. It was a nice routine. Again, it was the same choreographer, that Lisa Bitzler.
All right.
And just because it was traditional kind of ballroom style, but I think because it's meant to be that slightly debauchery kind of
Yeah.
drunkenness, excess kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was classic with that twist.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
And I just love the way he dances.
Oh,
as
he's
well.
brilliant.
He's unreal. Like,
He's really unique, isn't he?
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Blue and Elton John, and you saw Elton John, but didn't really meet him. So one thing I do want to ask you about is, moving on from that, is when you were a dancer on Top of the Pops.
I've done it a few times. Latest one was Glamour Kid, I think.
Right. So you were there with Glamour Kid. Now, who chooses the dancers for those performances? Is that him, or is that Top of the Pops that chooses?
Neither. That'll be the casting for.
Right. Okay.
So I'm trying to think what came first on that one. I think it was the pop video that came first. So I did the pop video for him.
Right. Okay.
And they just used the same dancers, because there was a lot of the same choreo for the pops as there was in the video.
Right. Okay.
And then we did a bit of a tour with him as well. So
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
In different places. I was very uncool on that one. Everybody was very cool.
Hey, but you're an actor, so you act cool, don't you?
Exactly.
You do that. Another
My
one.
children think it's hilarious when they see me trying to be all street on that one.
Brilliant. Another one, sort of quite close to my heart, there is Frankie Goes to Hollywood, The Power of Love, obviously with them being Scousers.
That was a bizarre one.
But you were like, it's like, it's the Rob Sale mix. It's a more recent mix of it. That that video is bananas, by the way.
It's totally nuts. It really
I
was.
don't.
It was very fun to do.
Are you an angel in that, or
Yeah, I think I start off as an angel. I think of various other things in there as well, but
it's so weird. I started watching it and I was like, I've got no clue. Sometimes you can follow a story in a music video, but
yeah, nah.
I had no clue. But with that, like, but what I noticed from the comments is everyone seems to love that video and loves that mix as well.
It was a funny time. Pop videos were very much the dancers' bread and butter in those
Yeah.
days. I think now a lot people want you to do it for exposure. I'm really glad I was working when I did,
Yeah.
because you used to properly get paid for things like that then, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite the same now.
Right. Right. I
Yeah,
see.
I think it's a very different bag being an actor, and people who I know are still doing things feel like have to self-promote on social media a lot,
Yeah.
whereas that didn't even exist when I was doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm quite glad I don't have to do all that
Uh-huh.
now.
I get yeah. And then you were in a Sash video at Atlante.
So yeah, I did a lot with Sash. We toured with Sash for about a year. So
Wow.
every weekend we do about some up to 4 countries, like literally countries in a weekend.
Wow.
So we used to do all the pop concerts and like the festivals around
Yeah.
Europe. So we were on the tour bus flying out to different places.
Brilliant.
So that yeah, it was good fun, and
But
we
that
did I did either 1 or 2 videos with him. I can't remember. And I know that I can definitely remember one. I've got a feeling there was another one, but
so that video for Adelante, there's a lot of dancing in the rain in
yeah.
that one. Is that difficult to do? Like where you learn a load of choreography and then oh by the way, we're going to be
It's just
throwing loads of water
discomfort.
on you.
It's not that it's hard, it's just discomfort, but you just put up with it.
But how long did they have you doing that for?
It was a good 2 days shoot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the last one I'm going to ask you about, the last music video, is probably people will know the song a lot more because it's one of those songs that doesn't seem to go away. The Groove Armada one.
I knew you were going to say
I see
that.
you, baby. Now,
So that was the original video
right,
for that. I
right,
think they reshot it. So when we first did that, they wanted to do, I think they wanted that low budget, cheesy 70s style fitness video
yeah,
look. And I think it was possibly slightly too cheesy and they wanted to go more upmarket. So I've got a feeling that there was another video for
right.
that was reshot that was a
'Cause
bit more street.
that was like at that time a lot of music videos were doing that, weren't they? They were just doing that sort of a load of girls dancing, doing the fitness
So
things.
yeah,
Like
it was around the same time. The Call on Me
yeah,
was the famous one at the
yeah,
time. So I think they were bouncing a bit off that, but
right.
I don't know even they might have even come first. I don't know. It was
All right,
around the
okay.
same time. I don't know which one came first. Obviously, Call on Me was the big one.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that was quite hard to do actually because we were doing it all on a turntable. So all these moves
right.
on this big like revolve.
Yeah.
It's
And today,
a bit dizzy.
and do they only have you dancing to that track?
Yeah,
Or, all right, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Because
It's
you
all
never,
timing. It's all
yeah.
exact timing.
Because
So
sometimes it just looks like it's just montages, doesn't it? It's just like they've just
yeah, I think
put
there's
it,
a
they,
lot of clever
yeah.
camera tricks going on and various things like that. But
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. So can I ask then, Kerry, are you still acting or dancing or
so
anything
as
like that at the
much as
moment?
lots of different, yeah. So the story of my life is fingers in lots of pies,
Right.
basically,
Okay.
lots of different things. So we moved up to Oxfordshire 16 years ago when my son was born.
Uh-huh.
Moved out of London, so obviously I couldn't pop along to castings quickly anymore.
Uh-huh.
So things did change. My my kid's dad they has a job which is shift work, so I
Right.
could never do your regular dancing school. I maybe would have opened a dancing school or something, but because of his work, that didn't happen.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up doing, well, I started off 2 businesses. One was teaching wedding dances. So I
Right.
teach people's first dance for their
Yeah.
wedding. So I've got a
Brilliant.
company, Take the Floor, wedding dances for that.
Uh-huh.
And around the same time, I did a few children's dance classes, but then somebody asked me to do a party. and it was just a lot more flexible. So I started
Yeah.
doing children's parties.
Right. Brilliant.
So I've got a company called Come to My Party that I do that with. So it was started off a bit of a disco, dancing and games. Then I did a bit of princessing,
Right.
dressing
Yeah.
up in the wigs and the
Yeah.
costumes and all of that, which is great fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, my mum always said nobody loves a fairy when she's 40. So so now,
Oh
so a
no.
few years ago, I got into magic.
All
So
right. Yeah.
now I do a magic show for half of the party,
Brilliant.
which is really good. And I've
Brilliant.
got more into close-up magic as well. So that's been really fun.
Yeah.
And for the last year, I've been working for a company called Spread a Smile, where we go into hospitals and do close-up
Wow.
magic and singing and balloon twisting and all things like that for people in hospitals. It was
That
at
must be
John
brilliant. That.
Radcliffe.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
there.
sorry, I was at John Radcliffe Hospital this morning.
Uh-huh.
I'm at Great Ormond Street on Thursday.
Wow.
We just go bed to bed. It's called Spread a Smile is the company, and that's literally what we just try and do is
Yeah, that must
go
be
and
incredible. I'm sorry, out of everything you've said there, that must be incredible. That
it's lovely. I really absolutely love it. And the reaction you get, and yeah, you really can just change somebody's day.
yeah,
And you can also, so there was one example, I think I asked, because you don't know anything about the
uh-huh.
child before you go in, you don't know any limitations or anything, you're just there to try and make them smile.
Yeah.
So I went in and I was doing some sort of card trick and I asked him to hold the cards and pick a card with the other hand. And as I was doing it, I sort of clocked there's you go in with the play team, and there's a manager as well. I clocked the parent, I think the play team, giving each other a bit of a look. And when we came out, they said that's the first time he's used his left hand since he's been in here. So
Wow.
obviously, he was too embarrassed and having too distracted to say anything. I don't use this hand, so we just did it. And I think it's moments like that that are just brilliant.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, I absolutely love it. I really do.
That's brilliant. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh,
So
brilliant.
lots of things going on.
Yeah. So let's just do that again. So your dance school, your first dance is what's that one
So
called?
that's called Take the Floor.
That's Take the Floor.
I've got a children's party company called Come to My Party.
Uh-huh.
And I work for this charity which is called Spread a Smile, which is definitely worth looking into.
And they're all based around the Oxfordshire.
So Spread a Smile is a London charity. That's a big charity.
Uh-huh.
But I get people coming from up to an hour to me for the wedding dances usually. I've done a few. You never really know who you're going to be teaching either. So I did one. I went to this. I sort of drove out to this place. And I was like, I don't really, what is this place? And he's like, oh, it's just my parents' little house in the country. Like, okay, this isn't. Then I'm noticing sort of pictures on the wall, like a picture of Bill Clinton and like a.
Wow.
And then it was I think my coaster for my coffee cup was like a presidential seal. And then it ended up, it was Ewan Blair, so Tony Blair's son, because they had that close relationship with the Clintons at the time. But you don't know. I've just had this chap called Ewan ring me up wanting a first dance lesson for him and his fiance. Can you come to this address? And you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
No, but
you don't even know how it goes after that. I did the lesson and then it was great. They did really, really well. I don't know how the dance went, but
I never thought that. That must be really strange.
Yeah.
Giving them lessons right there.
People don't give things away when you don't ask these questions. You just
but like giving them a lesson and then you will never know unless you're invited to the wedding what the dance goes like.
And it's one of those things that you don't really. Sometimes people get in touch, but after the honeymoon's over and life moves on, a lot of the time
I know like my sister, she did it for her wedding, but she worked with the guy who taught her. So he came to the wedding, so he got to see it. Whereas when I got married, we just span each other around the dance floor for 3 minutes, and that was it. Excuse me. But yeah, okay. So
No.
We are coming towards the end of the interview,
Sure.
Kerry, and I have got the same few questions that I ask everyone for every episode. So, over the last couple of years, there's been talk in the press of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond has written it,
Okay.
and what do you think of the idea of a Grange Hill movie?
Well, first of all, when you emailed me and you mentioned that in your email, and that's honestly the first time I've heard of it.
Right.
I think it'd be great.
Brilliant.
What's the premise? Is it that it's the same characters we used to
No,
know, or the same actors, or is it completely new?
I think from what I've heard, it's about what challenges children would be facing today.
Okay, so it's a modern day
Yeah,
Grange
modern
Hill
day,
rather
but
than facing it in the 80s
yeah,
or
using
70s.
some characters or older, but maybe not always sort of well-known characters
Yeah.
either. That's what I've heard, but we haven't heard anything for a while on it.
Don't know. I
Right?
think a lot of Grange Hill's charm, I mean, particularly now, is the
Yeah,
nostalgia.
yeah,
I think sometimes the challenges they have in school today, it'd be pretty boring to have your phone confiscated. And, it's much more funny. I mean, I think in the episodes I did, it was the Gonch stealing his neighbour's chain off their
yeah,
fence
yeah,
so he could use it as a bike lockup.
yeah,
And it's charming things like that made Grange Hill so great.
yeah,
And obviously there were serious things
yeah.
going on, but today's serious things, phones and I don't know, stabbings, and it doesn't. I don't know, it'd have quite the same charm.
Right, yeah,
I think if they did it in a cool, nostalgic point of view and actually set it in the 80s, I think it would have a lot more appeal than a modern day one.
yeah, yeah. I get
Because
it.
there
Yeah.
is modern day school things and there've been school programs and they've done well, but nothing's ever quite done as well as Grange Hill, has it?
No, but telly's different, isn't it now as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all on demand.
Yeah,
My children only watch YouTube.
yeah.
Yeah.
But on the movie, if you were asked, would we see a return of Lucy Pearson?
Well, first of all, I very much doubt they would, but I'm up for anything.
Nice
I'm
little,
always up for
nice little
anything.
reunion with Lucy and her big brother. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
My motto is never say no.
Okay. Now you mentioned earlier that you weren't supposed to be watching Grange Hill, but you were when you could. So, other than Lucy Pearson, who is your favourite character in Grange Hill?
I always had a soft spot for Ziggy.
Right. It's the accent, isn't it? That's what it
is.
is.
It's the accent.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Brilliant. And if you couldn't have played Lucy, I know you went for an audition to play someone else, but if you couldn't have played Lucy, which other character would you have liked to have played?
I don't know. I suppose at the time I was probably when I went to the casting, I probably read through Justine or
Right.
Susie or one of those. And she had that whole pink shirt thing going on, didn't she? I quite liked that, the cool rebel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that must have been a cool character to play. Yeah. A rebel's always cooler, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay. So the final question, Kerry, and you've touched on this a little bit already, is why do you think there's still such affection for Grange Hill?
I think it's nostalgia. It's a time at school when things were simpler. And it was just so much part of our lives. We came home from school and that was on, and we knew it was on at a certain time, and we were all watching it at the same time. Yeah. It's not that's the way television was then. Yeah. Everybody watched the same late night Saturday night program, and it was you could discuss it on Monday. And it was the same thing. We all know we'd have watched Grange Hill the night before and we could discuss it in school the next day. So it was part of our lives. Yeah. Whereas now, with the on demand, it's a completely different situation. Yeah. It's fabulous that they've got so much choice, but choice isn't always a thing.
It's a bit diluted, isn't it? Like you can watch a series in one go, can't you?
Exactly. Binge watch now. We binge watch rather than tune in. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to this character on Thursday? You've got to wait till Thursday.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for coming on.
It's been so much fun reminiscing.
and talking about your very brief stint on the program. The last episode was with Alex Lowe, who's been in all kinds of things. He only did 3 episodes as well. So you and him now have the record for there being a guest on the podcast with the fewest number of episodes to your name.
Cameo.
Yeah, but no, honestly, thank you so much for giving us your experiences, not just Grange Hill, but the wider industry as well. It's been great talking to you. So thank you so much. And to anyone that's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers. Thanks. Bye bye.